Hello and welcome back to the next class of Animal Kingdom. Now in this class we are going to continue with the characteristics, basic characteristics of the animal kingdom. So in the previous sessions we came across various terms and terminology, and we are continuing with the same terminology, so which is the further continued part of animal kingdom. So let's start with the next term. Next term is called as a Siloam. Now presence of a body cavity between the wall as well as the gut region is major important characteristic feature for the classification of animals. So presence of or absence of body cavity between the wall and the gut is important character in classification. Of animals. So body cavity, so presence or absence of the body cavity between the wall as well as the body cavity. So the gut wall body cavity between the wall and the gut, that means externally there will be a body covering called as a wall. Gut is nothing but it is our digestive system. In between these two, if there is a cavity or a space in the embryonic stage, so such term we call it as a coelom. So that's why coelom becomes an important characteristic feature for differentiating the organisms. Andre ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳಕತ್ತೀವಿ, ಬಾಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಬಾಡಿ ವಾಲು ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಗಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಅನ್ನನಾಳ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಆ ವಾಲ್ ಎರಡೂದ್ರ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಅದನ್ನೋ ಇಲ್ಲೋ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಆಧಾರ ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳನ್ನ ವಿಂಗಡಣೆ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಈಸ್ ದಿಸ್? ಸೊ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ದಿಸ್, ಸಪೋಸ್ ಇಫ್ ದ coelom ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್, ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ or body cavity is present, we call such animals as Celomates. So first let us take the first one. If coelom is present in animals, then they are called Celomates. Then what are these Silomates? So let us take them. Silomates means the body cavity is lined by mesoderm. If the body cavity ಈಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಮೆಸೋಡರ್ಮ್, ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗಟ್ ರೀಜನು ಮತ್ತು ಬಾಡಿ ವಾಲ್ ಎರಡೂದ್ರ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಅದರ ಲೈನಿಂಗ್ದಾಗ ಮೆಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ಓಕೆ, ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಲೋಬ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ. ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಲೋಬ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 3 ಜರ್ಮ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಇರುವಂಥ ಪ್ರಾಣಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ಸಿಲೋಮೇಟೋ ಸಿಲೋಮೇಟೋ ಅಂತನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ವಿಂಗಡಣೆ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು, ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಗುರುತು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ದಿಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಫೀಚರ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್. ನಾವು Celomates, what are Celomates? ಇದು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ. Celomates means presence of a true body cavity. This Celomates organisms, they are also called as Eucelomates. ಇವಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಯು ಸಿಲೋಮೇಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ ಟ್ರೂ ಸಿಲೋಮೇಟ್ಸ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ಟ್ರೂ ಬಾಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ. ಬಾಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಂಟಿ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಆ ರೀತಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಂಟಿ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಇರೋಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನಮ್ಮ ಅನ್ನನಾಳ ಮತ್ತು ಬಾಡಿ ವಾಲ್ ಎರಡೂ ನಾವು ಮಧ್ಯೆ ತೊಗೊಂಡಾಗ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಅದಾವೆ. ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಲಂಗ್ಸ್, ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್, ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕಿಡ್ನೀಸ್, ಲಿವರ್, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ. ನಾವು ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್. ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡಕತ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್, ಸೀಲೋಮ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಈಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಲೋಬ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯನಿಮಲ್ಸ್. ಅಂದರೆ 3 ಜರ್ಮ್ ಲೇಯರ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಯಾವುದು? ಔಟರ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಎಕ್ಟೋಡರ್ಮ್, ಮಿಡಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಮೆಸೋಡರ್ಮ್, ಇನ್ನರ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಎಂಡೋಡರ್ಮ್. Celomates means the cavity, body cavity is lined by mesodermal cells, and we find the cavity and hence we call such type as celomate organisms. ಇವು ಏನಂತ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು we come across a diagrammatic representation. In that diagrammatic representation we will understand it more better. Okay. Now regarding the part of the celomates, pseudocelomate as well as celomates. So we have one representation. So let's look at those representations and let's look at the differences also. Okay. Now as far as the celomate is concerned, so let us take the organisms. So here we have the, I am drawing the inner layer. This inner layer we call it as a endoderm. Let us call it as endoderm, and this endoderm is lined by this endoderm is lined by one more layer cells. This is lined by one more layer cell where we call it as the mesoderm, and this surrounds okay, it is surrounded by a layer of mesodermal cells. Okay, now here also we have the cells. So this is the mesoderm. And this is surrounded by this is the outer layer where we call it as ectoderm. This is the ectoderm. So these are the ectodermal cells. Look at this. This is the ectoderm. This is middle one mesoderm. This is also mesoderm. This is endoderm. Inner one is endoderm. So all the 3 germ layers are there. But here we have a space cavity. This cavity is called as a coelom. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು coelom ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. And we are talking about the coelom or the celomates only in triploblastic animals. ಇದು ನೆನಪಿರಲಿ, ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇ ಮಾತಾಡಕತ್ತೀವಿ ಇದು ಟ್ರಿಪ್ಲೋಬ್ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ 3 ಜರ್ಮ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದ ಸೀಲೋಮ್ ಈಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಲುಕ್ ಎಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸೀಲೋಮ್, ದ ಬಾಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಈಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಇದು ಬಾಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್, ಫ್ಲೂಯಿಡ್ ಫಿಲ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಅಂತ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಇದು ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೈನಿಂಗಿಂದ ಮಾಡಲ್ಪಟ್ಟದ್ದು. ಯಾಕೆ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮ್ ಅದ, ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮ್ ಅದ. ಈ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿಗೆ ಸೀಲೋಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಆ ಸೀಲೋಮ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಫ್ಲೂಯಿಡ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ಇದು ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ, ಇದು ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಹುಡುಕಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ. ಈಗ ಯಾವ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸು? ಲಂಗ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಲಿವರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಿಡ್ನೀಸ್, ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್. ಈ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತದ. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೀಲೋಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸೀಲೋಮೇಟ್ ಆ್ಯನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸಚ್ ಆ್ಯನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಸೀಲೋಮೇಟ್ ಆ್ಯನಿಮಲ್ಸ್. And if we take example for this, for the Silomate, here we come across examples like Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Hemichordata, hemichordates and chordates. So all these organisms, they are coelomate animals. Ivella coelomate animals iruvantavu. Okay, so this is regarding the part of the coelom. Outer one ectoderm, middle endoderm. This is the cavity. Again we have endodermal cells here. Andre ee cavity ಎದರಿಂದ ಸರೌಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ಯದ? ಎಂಡೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ದಿಂದ ಸರೌಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ಯದ. ಇನ್ನರ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಎಂಡೋಡರ್ಮ್. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮ್ ಅದಾವು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನರ್ ಎಂಡೋಡರ್ಮ್ ಅದ. ಇದು ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಗಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಗಟ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅನ್ನನಾಳ, ಅದು ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ. ಸಪೋಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಎ ಪೈಪ್, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಂಟ್ರದಾಗ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಗಟ್. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಗಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬಾಡಿ ವಾಲ್ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಇತ್ತಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಸೀಲೋಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಅಂಥ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಸೀಲೋಮೇಟ್ಸ್. ಆ ಸೀಲೋಮ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್ದಿಂದ ಏನಾಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ? ಕವರ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಎರಡು ಕಡೆ ಲೈನಿಂಗ್. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ cells, and hence such type of animals are said to be what? Silomate animals. Okay, then let's look, this is the first diagram. Let's look at the second diagram. Second one is pseudo Silomate, third one is a Silomate. Our diagram nodukondu let's go to the definition and let's have an comparative account here. Now second one, pseudo Silom. Here we have the endoderm. I am drawing from inside to outside. Here we have the endodermal layer. This endodermal layer is lined by patches of mesodermal cells. So this is lined by patches of mesodermal cells which is surrounded by the ectoderm. So this is surrounded by the ectoderm. So outer layer we call it as ectoderm. So we have the ectoderm, we have the endoderm. So all these are the cells, and this is in embryonic stage. ಭ್ರೂಣ ಅವಸ್ಥೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರುವಂಥ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಇದು. So that's why we are stressing on this point. ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತದ? ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರ್ತದ. ನಾವು ಲುಕ್ ಅಟ್ ದಿಸ್. ಇವು ಎಂಡೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಯಾಚಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾಟರ್ಡ್. Okay, these are scattered. Now look at this. Outer ectoderm, inner endoderm, ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ mesoderm, ಮೀಸೋಡರ್ಮ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಯಾಚಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಯಾಚಸ್. And such type of animals having this, we call them as a pseudo-Celomates. This one is a Silomates. This is ectoderm. This one endoderm. This is mesoderm, and we call this as a pseudocoelom. Pseudo meaning false coelom, false body cavity ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ pseudocoelomate. ಯಾಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ this is not completely surrounded by endodermal cells. That's why it appears like a false coelom, pseudocoelom ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. This type of pseudocoelom is found in Ascalmenthes. ಇದು Ascalmenthes ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತದ. So let's look at its definition also. Okay. Then let's look at the third diagram, and we'll have an comparative account for this. The inner layer cells, they are endodermal cells. These endodermal cells are surrounded by the mesodermal cells without any space, without any cavity, without any body cavity. Now this is again surrounded by the outer layer cells, and these outer layer cells we call them as a ectodermal cells. So we have ectoderm, middle is mesoderm, inner one is endoderm. So all these cell layers are there, but there is no body cavity. So this is outer layer ectoderm, this is mesoderm, inner one is a endoderm. As there is no body cavity here, we call such type of animals as a Celomates. This is a Celomate, means no body cavity. That means outer layer ectoderm, below the ectoderm we have endodermal cells. These endodermal cells do not possess any body cavity in the embryonic stage. ಭ್ರೂಣಾವಸ್ಥೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. That's why we call it as a Celomate, no coelom, no body cavity, absence of body cavity. Here it is true presence of body cavity in the Celomates. Here it is totally absence of a body cavity. That's why we call it as a pseudocoelomate. And here it appears like a body cavity where we find endodermal cells in the form of patches, and hence this type we call it as a false Celomates, also termed as a pseudocoelomates. Okay. Now if we quote an example, already for the Celomates we have quoted all these examples, and for the pseudocoelomate we have an example of Ascalmenthes, and for the Celomate we have an example of Platyhelminthes, flatworms, ಚಪ್ಪಟೆ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳು ಬರುವಂತವಿಲ್ಲಿ. Okay. So let's look at the definition of these two and look at the comparative account. The same diagrams are given in your NCERT, and for the better diagrams you can refer the NCERT also. Okay, let's check the definition for the Celomates as well as pseudocoelomates. Okay, now for the pseudocoelomates, second one is pseudocoelomates. The mesodermal layer is scattered and present in the form of patches. So this is present in the form of patches. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಿಸುವಂಥವು ಏನು ಪ್ಯಾಚ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಅದಾವ ಅವು ಮಿಸೋಡರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್ಸ್. And here what we see, this is a false what cavity, and hence we call this part as a pseudo Silomete. And an example for the pseudo Silomates, here we come across a Celomates. The example for this is Celomates, where we also call them as a roundworms. And the last one, we have a Silomete. A Silomete, body cavity is absent. Body cavity is absent, or we call absence of body cavity. That means though we have mesodermal cells, but there is no space in that mesodermal cell, and hence we call the body cavity is absent. Such type of a Silomete we observe in Platyhelminthes. This is in Platyhelminthes, flatworms. Okay, so this is regarding the part of Celomates, presence of a true body cavity. Remember, this is in embryonic stage. Pseudosilomate, false body cavity, where the mesodermal cells are present in the form of patches. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣುವಂಥದ್ದು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಫಾಲ್ಸ್ ಸಿಲೋಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಕಾಣಿಸುವಂಥ ಪ್ರಾಣಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆ. Celomates ಒಳಗಡೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತದ, ರೌಂಡ್ ವರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಕಾಣಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು. Celomates, there is no body cavity in between the ectoderm and endoderm. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೂ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋನಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ. That's why we call such organisms as Celomates. Okay, so this is regarding the basic difference between Celomates, Celomates as well as pseudo-Celomates. So with these we have last two more basics to discuss, and later on we have the detailed account of the animal kingdom. So the next basic term that we are going to discuss is segmentation. The next term is segmentation. Segmentation is nothing but presence of external as well as internal segments on the body of organisms. For example, if we take an example of a earthworm, earthworm has segments on its bodies. This is what is called as a segmentation. Earthworm has segments, ring like segments. So internally and externally the body is made up of many segments, and the process is called as a segmentation. And the formation of these segments, we also call them as metamers. So that's why for the segmentation we also call it as metamers. So process of formation of these metamers is called as metamerism, right? So segmentation is it is the formation of internal and external segments in the body of organisms. It is not found in all the organisms, it is found in few organisms. Okay, like we take earthworms, Annelida. Okay, and it is also called metamers. We also call this process as metamers, and the process of formation of metamer is termed as metamerism. This is what is termed as metamerism. Okay, so with this we will move on to the last definition. The last definition is notochord. Now it is mesodermal in origin and present on dorsal surface of animals during embryonic stage. So this is a mesodermally origin organ present on the dorsal surface of animals during which stage? Embryonic stage. ಭ್ರೂಣಾವಸ್ಥೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಮಗೆ ನೋಟೋಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. If the notochord is present, such type of animals are called as chordates. If notochord is absent, such type of organisms are called as non-chordates. So that's why we use a term, if notochord is present, then they are chordates. If notochord is present, then they are chordates, and if notochord is absent, then what they are called as? Non-chordates. Akasharaka anta karidivi. Then they are called non-chordates. And examples for non-chordates: phylum Porifera to the last phylum Echinodermata. So example for this is phylum Porifera to Echinodermata. Okay, so this is regarding the basic terms of the animal kingdom. Next part is the entire outline classification of chordates and non-chordates, and after that we are going to study in detail and in depth of each of these phylums, starting from Porifera till the vertebrates, till Mammalia. So that part will continue in the next class. Thank you.